again, filming in my new location, in my new house with mine and my husband's new house. I'm here today actually to do the mid-year freakout tag. It's the time of year everybody's kind of doing it. I always had a lot of fun doing it the last 2 years, so I'm doing it again this year. The original creators, one video is deactivated, so I'll just include the link for the one that's still up currently. And first is, what is the best book you've read in 2021? For me, that was The Flood in the Valley by Rebecca Mahoney. It was a kind of contemporary, kind of low fantasy or story that really did a good job dealing with like grief and loss. And it wasn't super long, but I really enjoyed it, and like what they did with it and how they talked, like how the main character dealt with her issues. It was very touching, and I really enjoyed myself. Prompt 2 is, what is the best sequel that you've read in 2021? For me, this would be Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. I read All Systems Red at the end of 2020, and I immediately put the next book on hold at my library through the Libby app because I wanted to listen to it at work, and it took like 4 months for me to get it, but it was worth the wait. I absolutely adored it. It wasn't as good as the first one, but it still had a lot of the same humor, and the things I loved about the main character were still there. Prompt 3, what new release haven't you read yet that you want to? This would be one, I actually it was recommended to me on the My TBR service that I'm using the last 2 quarters, I guess. And the book's called Never Have I Ever by Isabel Yap. It is a dark fantasy short story compilation. It was recommended to me because I wanted to kind of dip my toe into grimdark, but typically just more enjoy straight dark fantasy. So I'm excited to pick that up. I mean, there's a million, but that's the one that's like highest on my TBR. Number 4, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? There are a ton, but I recently found out that Kristen Harmel, who wrote the Book of Lost Names, which was one of my favorite books of last year, is coming out with a new book, and I am incredibly pumped. It's called The Forest of Vanishing Stars. It is if I recall correctly, it's another World War II based book about the people who were living in the forests to flee the Nazis. And so, very excited to see how this goes, if it's what I'm thinking of. Regardless, I'm just excited because of how much I enjoyed my first book from her. 5, what is your biggest disappointment of 2021? I actually just watched another YouTuber's video, and they included this book in their most disappointing reads of 2021 as well, and that is To Sleep in the Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I know his fantasy series is really, really well loved. I personally never got into the Aragon series. I can see, based on what I've heard about it, why so many people loved it. However, I feel like To Sleep in a Sea of Stars was really just a swing and a miss for books. There was a lot of like really interesting content in the book, but it was too long and had some like really severe pacing issues that made the story feel really choppy. My experience of this book as a whole is it could have been 200 pages shorter, and I think it would have been a terrific book. 6 is, what is the biggest surprise? And for me, that was The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. And the reason it was the biggest surprise for me is that I was super worried it was overhyped, because I've only heard good things, and I haven't really seen bad reviews for it, so I was worried that what I was reading was just part of like the hype train that you can get with some really good books, but oh boy, was I wrong. It was brilliant. I loved it, and then I immediately read Kingdom of Copper, and then I took a break because I didn't want to burn out from the series, and I did that by starting Empire of Gold and going, you know what? I need to take a break and come back to this because I want to truly enjoy my experience and not get burnt out halfway through the book, because that's all I've been listening to is that world. 7, your favorite new author, either a debut author or a new to you author. I'm going to go with Matt Haig. I read The Midnight Library and it blew my mind. It is one of my favorite books this year so far. It was just, I'm sure you guys have heard of it and heard other people talk about it incessantly. I think I've talked about it at some point too. It was just really good. And although it wasn't a debut novel for him, it's the first book of his that I've read, and it was just mind-blowing. 8, who is your new fictional crush? I don't really have one, but I guess I'd go with Sancha Grotto from Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. She was just so tough and scruffy and interesting and damaged, but like doing her best, and I just really enjoyed her. And I mean, I'd prefer them not to put her in a love triangle of any kind. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But 9 is your favorite new character. I'm going to go with Audrey Coltrane from Flight Girls by Nicole Salazar. I read that, it was like 2 months ago, I think. For my reading challenge, I was just reading a bunch of books that I picked up because of the covers or the titles. I can't remember which one that was supposed to be for. And I read it last and just loved it. She was a strong female character. She knew what she wanted. She knew how to go get it. And she just like pushed where she needed to, but she was also very loving and kind, and I loved her friendships, and just overall she was just a really awesome character, and I just had a really good experience with the story. 10, a book that made you cry. I would have to go with The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. There's something about mother-daughter relationships in books, especially like rocky ones where you know they love each other, but they're just so different. They're such different people that it's hard for them to interact. And just, I adore those. And those mother-daughter relationships hit me so hard. So hard. I never do anything but tear up. 11, a book that made you happy. This one is actually The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I mean, there's a lot of depressing shit going on and a lot of racism in that book, but she handles it super well. And just the way that the avatars start interacting with each other just is beautiful. And I loved the friendships that ended up establishing themselves, and they were just so fun to follow. And I finished that book on smiling, even if it wasn't necessarily a high note ending. 12, what is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year? I'll throw it up on screen here to show you guys, but it is a book I've already mentioned, Never Have I Ever by Isabel Yap. It's just beautifully drawn, and I really, really liked it. 13, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I need to read so many books, guys. There's all of the books for my challenges that I have planned. There's all of the books for my 2020 Goodreads reading challenge. I read the winners from 2020. I have so much on my TBR. And then there's all the books I'm just going to pick up at random. I don't know. There's just so many. So again, this was the Mid-Year Freakout book tag. Link is below, in the description below. for the original creators and prompts, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.